we took the approach of going in and looking at what kind of value can we create for the client here, and not so much how many hours can we put in with the client to fix whatever problems they might have. So we, as we would say from a Nordic point of view, took the helicopter and created that overview of what are the pain points here globally that we wanted to solve. And obviously looking at the megatrends out there, the aging infrastructure, increased urbanization, stretching capacity together with climate changes, aging workforce. It all drove in the direction of utilizing data much better for decision making.
Welcome to The Meter, the podcast that digs into the origin stories of the founders, inventors, and entrepreneurs creating exciting innovations in a less exciting but very necessary field, the utilities. We go deep into the trials, risks, and successes that these folks experience, all to make our basic necessities run better, whether that's your tap water, electrifying your home, or bringing internet to your phone. I'm your host, Andrew Dugan. Have you ever looked at the health app on your phone? It tells you how you're sleeping, how many steps you've taken today, the calories you've burned. And if you get an Apple Watch, the data goes even deeper. The volume of data that gets created these days is unfathomable. We're drowning in it. And so it seems like the next frontier of data isn't tracking it, it's not generating data, but actually helping us do something with it, taking the information and the insights and getting a sense of how we can sleep better, burn more calories, get more steps. A very similar trend has occurred in parallel in the business world. Businesses started collecting data, but didn't actually know how to use it. You could see this at utilities as well, tracking and monitoring their processes, but totally underutilizing the data's potential to better operate a pump station, a power plant, or a substation. For Ulrich Hansen, helping water plants analyze their data and use it to make decisions has been a mission for the past decade. Danish water plants were among the first to adopt a data-forward approach to operating their plants, and as a result, the first to experience the onslaught of data that they just weren't quite sure how to use.
I was recruited by a company called Orbicon back in 2015 to head up the commercial side of a software division. Orbicon is later on acquired fully by WSP, which for many is a familiar engineering firm today, and it is the base of their Nordic division. But being inside that engineering firm and working in a software division gave some insights that was quite critical to where we are today with APX10. Orbicon was a leading Nordic engineering firm in water and environmental services. So we had a great position in terms of working directly with municipalities and utilities in the water, wastewater, stormwater space. And the software division itself had been around for at least 25 years. So we had some, what I would call legacy software, aging back to the 90s. And it was tough to actually figure out how to go from that into a new game, taking all that legacy with us. So I would say a handful of very clever people inside that software division came to the conclusion that, well, we can definitely do more with what we have, but also take this to a whole new playing field, basically disrupting the industry.
Wow. And so that's a good point. You kind of got lucky landing in Orbicon because you inherited quite a lot of knowledge, a lot of industry, what am I trying to say, clout. You came into a company that had dominated your region and they saw the issues and they had a software division for 25 years. I mean, since the 90s, they had a software division, clearly very forward thinking. And from what I can understand, they saw that Nordic utilities were taking in lots of data, but maybe not translating it to actionable decision making, or they had all this information. We're seeing this all over the world now, and it doesn't surprise me. Maybe the Nordics were experiencing this before the rest of the world. But so what are you seeing at these utilities, or what are they saying? Are they essentially, we have all these monitors, but what do we actually do with the information? What is prompting you all to say, what is prompting the initial creation of APX10 before it was APX10? What are the issues you're seeing?
Yeah, but to say exactly. We saw all this data being available. Some clients saw it, but definitely we did as an engineering firm and as consultants that this could be utilized to something new and something more. And being commercial, I always have a client-first approach. So you can say, without offending too many engineering firms here, we took the approach of going in and looking at what kind of value can we create for the client here, and not so much how many hours can we put in with the client to fix whatever problems they might have. So we, as we would say from a Nordic point of view, took the helicopter and created that overview of what are the pain points here globally that we wanted to solve. And obviously looking at the megatrends out there, the aging infrastructure, increased urbanization, stressing capacity together with climate changes, aging workforce, it all drove in the direction of utilizing data much better for decision making. And coming from a company where we were specialized as engineers and creating services around water, wastewater, stormwater, and networks, and then building software, it was a luxury to actually look at that domain knowledge and defining what is it then that we want to build. Client first, it was also a matter of looking at where have the challenges been before when doing something like that. And we wanted to do things differently, also considering that problem that many utilities and municipalities face with IT solutions out there. Enormous challenge in the implementation phase. There's the adaptation to users. And if you look at some of the software solutions used out there today, that's also still legacy platforms that is very specialist orientated. So we wanted to build something that could help these utilities take proper decisions and clever decisions within reinvestment of pipelines, strategic planning, and also give them better operational insights that you could not do working as an engineer. But we wanted to do it quicker and more intuitive than anyone else had done before. And our starting point was great. As you mentioned, in the Nordics, we might have had an advantage because we were actually sitting on tons of great data already. One part being from what was collected in the marketplace, but also what had been generated as kind of static data related to assets. The Nordics is the most heavily regulated marketplace in the world, and that has provided us with a front row position, you could say, being the most efficient utilities in the world. So how could we actually learn from that and use all that knowledge that was generated? It's kind of an upside of regulation. Some people hate regulation as a general thing, but you could say when you are that heavily regulated over that many years, you actually have to innovate as you go. And the Danish market, Swedish, Norwegian market have been doing that for the past 15, 20 years. So we were, starting in a good position.
You got a head start being in the region you're in. And I think that's why we see so many Danish companies. And it seems like your country is as a concerted effort to now take that innovation that it's found domestically and is exporting it across the world. And you're, one of those companies that is now trying to bring, that, as you said, kind of preemptive regulatory landscape. And as the rest of the world catches up to where you all are, you're giving that knowledge and showing, what you've learned along the way. And it's exciting. And so I'm curious, who are some of your initial clients, right? You see this initial problem, all the things that you mentioned. There's a lot of different trends, and you see software and the data that's being collected as one of the tools that can be used to address these trends that you're seeing. Do you have pilot tests while you're at Orbicon? You have some trusted relationships with certain utilities and you sort of come to them, how do you pitch this new idea to, your potential customers?
Yeah, this was a very classic lean startup approach, actually. We did the, we would say, proof of concept, working out a few slides in a PowerPoint, presenting the ideas, got a few nods to that. And then we actually started off building the platform as a minimum viable product, still while being inside of that engineering firm. And that's an interesting thing to be doing that, building software that isn't sold yet inside an engineering firm where the business model is entirely hourly based. So there were some inherent challenges in doing that, but with great support from the management and the board of that company, that they could see that this can actually change how the world is moving forward and how utilities are utilizing software. But you can say, then coming to a conclusion in terms of having a few clients signing on an MVP that could barely breathe. We also easily could see that, well, we need a lot of funding here if we want to take this global. And being inside a company that was at that time limited to the Nordics, we also concluded that, well, we need a new partner to help us go capture the rest of the world, basically. So from January 2019, we spun out the company and created APX10 as a standalone company, completely independent from any engineering firms. And then you can say, alongside developing that MVP into a real product, getting some domestic clients to sign on for subscriptions, we had to find a partner that could help us grow internationally. So I spent the majority of 2019 also fundraising and finding that long-term partner.
And you're getting ahead of me a little bit. So you're right. 2015, you come on, and maybe to help promote this, and I should have asked that. Are you brought on to help Orbicon with this Apex, what becomes Apex 10, or are you brought on for something else? And
I'm brought on to revitalize.
Find your way onto that project.
Yeah.
Okay.
I find my way on you can say, revitalizing Orbicon in the software field, and then we come up with the idea to the Apex platform. So that's derived in 2017, 2018, looking at all that potential data sitting there, and then with the insights again into those existing solutions out there. And then you can say, we were also lucky to time this right in terms of when did we see cloud technology actually being mature enough and where the price point was right in terms of entering the market. So we launched exactly when we saw scalability being available from a technical point of view as well.
Sure, because your technology does require a certain level of technology to be usable. So that's pretty fast, honestly. So you're brought on to help revitalize the existing software department. Pretty soon after, you guys sort of figure out what you want to do. In 2017, you sort of launched this project internally, and by 2019, you've spun it off into a whole other company. It is quite a progression. So I'm curious about those 2 years before you leave, because the idea was that you were going to help grow the division, and then you essentially make something so powerful that it has to leave the company. I assume that wasn't the idea when you started in 2017. The idea is that it would be an internal, offering that for Orbicon, right? For Orbicon's bottom line. So, what do you find in those 2 years in 2017, 2018, how are you developing the product with those beta clients that you have in the Nordics?
Yeah, I think obviously there's a great portfolio back then in Orbicon and possibly still is of great solutions that are tailored towards specialist needs. But looking at that global thing as our ambition, we could see that, well, we need to step up the game here. So working on a project on the side like this is, as I mentioned, a challenge when you live in that world of hourly-based business model. So you could also call this kind of a skunk work that we did until it was fully recognized by management that it makes good sense and put some muscle into it, and then we'll see where it ends. So it became a dual project for sure. And then ultimately in the spring of 2018, we could see this has to take off to live its own life. And then from January 29th off.
How did it feel to leap into entrepreneurship and leave Orbicon? Maybe sooner than you had expected. I don't know. But yeah, how did it feel? Was this your first venture? I know that you have a commerce background, but was this the first time you were self-employed, essentially?
I've always been super excited about entrepreneurship, but worked corporate all of my life up till then. And you could say it was kind of a luxury approach to doing this, because even though we carved it out, we continued under the ownership of the owners of Orbicon for 1 year until we found that partner. So we had some kind of runway, you could say, to make this happen the right way. So there's a lot of good credits on that account, and we're really appreciative of being put in a position where we could do this, because it was also a matter of handpicking and choosing people that I wanted to work with and who wanted to work with me to actually see this succeed. So it was founded on a really interesting condition compared to many other great ideas, I guess.
Yeah, no, that is sort of a unique spin-off. And so, and you had told me in the pre-show questions that that first year in 2019, there was still a lot of R&D going on. You had done a lot to develop it at Orbicon, you spun off, but that first year, you're still doing a lot to take that MVP and really make it something commercially viable. What's going on in 2019? You've launched January 1st, 2019, you launch APX10, you leave Orbicon. And yeah, what does that year look like for you all before you end up getting a cash flow injection from a capital?
Yeah, you could say figuring out what are the markets that we want to aim at, establishing a commercial team to actually create that kind of traction, and building out the product so we could also see it fitting into a global perspective. And I think we've been product-wise globally based from day one. This was a matter of scale. So we didn't build something that catered specifically to a domestic market. This had to be something that was scalable. So we today also still consider the Nordic market as a test lab for our platform, because this is where we have the best possible data to work with and where we have great relationships with many, many clients. We have a 25% domestic market share, so that gives us great insights to what's going on. And when speaking to the clients, I can also tell you that that's one thing that we really enjoy here is that, of course, we were close to the clients being part of Orbicon prior, but then choosing to go after a market that had previously been underserved, that small and mid-sized market of utilities, meant that the conversations, the dialogue we could create with prospects and clients out there has been quite unique.
And so 2019, by the end, you develop a solid product and you have an intention on launching in 2020. And as anyone listening knows, COVID happened in March of 2020. And this, I think, put a bit of a wrench in your plans. What's happening internally here? Is there panic? What is happening in 2020 right as you're about to launch? And what does COVID look like for APX10?
Yeah, no, very much a paradox, because we were ready to launch. We were so intrigued by taking on the world, and also signed with an external investor who acquired the company in June 2020. So everything just exploded at the same time here. So obviously a huge challenge in terms of not being able to go out into the world as we had hoped physically. But then it actually just stressed the fact that, well, we're developing a SaaS solution here. This is something that you should be able to do online as well, even though it's a complex thing. It's a market that you don't know. So we would say focused a lot in terms of scaling domestically and in the near markets in the Nordics, where we could claim to be somewhat familiarized, and then really laying out the plans for how do we capture the right markets after that. So it became a matter of spending 2020, 2021, and 2022 defining what's going to be next year, building the platform extremely strong.
So as you mentioned, in June of 2020, Simbra Capital invested in you all only a year after launching, and it's pretty quick. How has that relationship been, taking on that capital, and what does that relationship look like? What sort of support do they give you? Because they continue, 6 years later, they're still your major partner, correct? Yeah, tell me more about that relationship with Simbra.
Yeah, you would say Simbra took over full ownership in 2020, and it has been a great relationship ever since. I spent the majority of 2019 looking at possibilities out there and who was in this game from a global point of view, who would help us expand, who would have the finances to also stay with us in the long run, and who understood the market of utilities and municipalities, because that's also kind of a special market to be in.
Sure.
And the market of funding for companies like us were very limited back then compared to what it is today. There's so many more opportunities today than what we saw 5-6 years back.
I believe it.
But we are extremely happy to have had Simbra on board ever since, because they were that kind of niche investor that didn't just claim to have smart money, but actually had smart money. They knew the game. They had the network, and they obviously also had the funding to help us grow. And also the understanding of what you can say COVID-19 would do to us, or how it would hold us back for a couple of years, because you had to really have some solid investors backing you who believed in your ability to scale when the world would open, and also believed that the world would actually open.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that takes a lot of faith. And you're right. Finding the right capital partner in the utilities market is, really important, and not everyone does it. And so finding not just money, but the right money is really important. So it
Exactly.
seems like you did that.
I'm a strong believer also that finding the type of money that we did with private equity is right when you are in this space where you're a small, back then still unproven technology that want to expand globally, and where you were serving a market with conservative buyers and long sales cycles. So not going venture has been great for us at this point.
It's awesome. And so you started in the Nordics. Germany is also a very big market for you all. When did the US market become apparent for APX10 to grow into, in terms of regions?
Yeah, it actually did all the way back in 2019.
Okay. It was always in your sight.
It was always in my sight. I visited WebTech in 2019 and really got a
Okay.
taste for it. Obviously, we couldn't go back in 2020 and 2021, right? But we could see that this market could definitely be beneficial both for us, but the market could definitely benefit from having the Apex platform helping them out. So what we did during COVID was to create that market entry plan, that global, you can say, expansion plan that we wanted to follow. And we have two main markets that we want to go after, and that's the German market and the US market. So we took kind of an approach where we call this a rifle shot approach to two markets that are structurally very identical, and where the pain points are the exact same when you're a utility or community. Water, wastewater, stormwater is a challenge for you. So that means that there's a lot of synergy between two markets, although you wouldn't consider that when looking at them from the top. But serving them in water, there definitely is.
And as you came to the US, I'll back it up, in the Nordics, because they are fairly advanced, and kind of at the cutting edge of where the utility space is, you were a little spoiled. You had really good data from these very forward-thinking utilities, and I don't want to bash the utilities here in the US, but they're very fractured. There's a lot of them, and they're not all caught up technologically. You could probably tell me, just some of these utilities that you all call on and visit, they're still in the 90s in some cases in terms of the data they're collecting and how they're collecting it. And so I'm curious about sort of the struggles you've faced since entering this market. What have been the barriers as you come to a more fractured market, a much larger market than Denmark, that is not uniform in terms of where it is technologically? What are you seeing as you go out and talk to utilities in the US?
Yeah, you can say definitely. There is a difference between the starting point of data in the domestic market that we serve and then entering the US or the German market. If anything positive at all came from COVID-19, it was that, I would say, utilities in every market in the world could see or face that they needed to go digital. So that helped a lot in terms of maturing them mindset-wise, that they needed to invest in it. And then when we look at the data specifically, when we enter, for example, the US market, we can obviously see that the structure might not be there that we have been accustomed to from a Nordic point of view, but that doesn't really matter because we knew that up front. That was kind of the way we were founded, that, well, we need to work with anything out there. This has to work globally, so we should be able to capture anything. And then in the essence of what we do, and that luxury you also spoke to of being bred in the Nordics, is that we want to help utilities in the US and Germany leapfrog into what we have in the Nordics. And that's what we can do by this platform. So they can basically skip 20 years of evolution, digital evolution, by taking on a platform like this. So you can say,
and I'm curious, how are you educating, as you go around, because again, for your product to even be viable, there's a certain level of technology that has to be brought on and adopted in-house. So how, when you're evangelizing APX10, and calling on people, what does that education look like?
You absolutely have to look for some kind of digital maturity within an organization, and having developed a platform that also have a very unique user interface where you can have users non-specialized work with things that used to be a specialist kind of area in a utility. That helps a lot. So showcasing how this is really done is obviously one part. But I think where we have the biggest advantage and also the greatest value of what we do is the communities that we create around our platform.
Yeah.
Even though you sell software and this is all digital, it's about the users out there. And what we have created in each market that we're in is user groups that are together physically also on an annual basis, and the smaller networking groups where you have your peers pitching in with their challenges and how they can utilize a platform like ours to actually solve the problems that they have. That is really unique in terms of both getting insights to what should we develop going forward, but also to, educating, having larger parts of the organization and the utilities adapting your solution, and also getting that foresight in what is coming next of a challenge that they want solved, being digital.
When you all came to the US, you set up shop in Milwaukee, I believe, and the state of Wisconsin has been and continues to be a water industry hub for manufacturing. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that Kenosha Water was, I think, your first American client. Kenosha is a really old town, relative to the United States. Their sewers had a lot of issues, and that creates a lot of maintenance. And it sounds like they were spinning their wheels, and Apex 10 helped out with prioritizing their maintenance. Can you tell me more about just Kenosha and how you all have help them get on top of their maintenance and whatever else you've helped them in terms of their management of their utility?
Yeah, absolutely. You can say Kenosha took a leap of faith in us because we were fairly unknown when they saw us the first time. But they had great ambitions and have great ambitions in terms of being digital. So you can say the success that we have in Wisconsin with Kenosha and now surrounding clients in Wisconsin as well has a lot to do with strong management in utility of Kenosha, and also a team of both mature and young employees that took a bold decision to go with the Nordic software, but also to go digital all the way. And I believe it's a core strategy for them to do that also going forward. This wasn't just a kind of one-off experiment. They want to be digital because it can help them obviously become more efficient, but also to drive the right decisions here. And that's, you can say, what we're all about is helping these utilities prioritize so they make the right decisions. They are all in a setup where the budgets are extremely tight. They are basically underfunded. So spending budget on the wrong things, the wrong projects, that's just even more painful than not having the budget.
Sure. That makes sense. And it also makes sense that there was that culture shift for them. Like you said, they have a young staff that saw how they wanted to change. And it sounds like maybe you guys got lucky. You sort of right place, right time. You came in right as they were looking for a solution like yours.
First client is always super tricky, and you can say I've been working as mentioned commercially all my life, and also in international market expansion, and you know that it will take 18, 24 months when you enter a new market or get the idea to enter a new market to actually catch that first client or catch the client. Right. Getting to that level where we actually had Kenosha on board, things became much easier for us, while we're now expanding into several states in the US. But again, coming out from the Great Lakes area in the Midwest. And it was, as you said, a deliberate choice for us to set up shop there. I think working in water is not just drinking water, it's working in wastewater, stormwater. And we could clearly see that around the Great Lakes, there was this appreciation of the entire water ecosystem. And that means that having a platform like ours that caters to the multi-utility sphere here was so much more easy when we spoke to prospects. So we're very happy with the choice of establishing the company in Milwaukee and then expanding from there. Although now we can say we have our clients spread out in multiple states, not necessarily around the Great Lakes, but that was the perfect entry point for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fast forward to last year in 2025. Do you have enough users now to where you had your first user conference in Chicago? You also came out with another product, LXL, I believe. And so I'm curious, tell me, how did the user conference go? Tell me about this new product that you all have put out and where it came from.
Yeah, first user conference was up in Milwaukee, but fair enough,
It
close
was
to
in
Chicago.
Milwaukee.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you could say that was a fantastic thing. We've obviously had that in the Nordics for the last 6 years, and in Germany for the last 3 years, and then first time US having people fly in from various locations to join us and have this full one day together with our client base, created a lot of great momentum in terms of how those peers can also utilize each other, but also where we should be heading next with our platform. And it is so inspiring to be together with your clients. Again, I'm a client first kind of type. So actually being together with the ones using your platform and hearing it firsthand makes so much more sense for us than just sitting online. So that's a heavy investment from our side to build those communities. And you can say this year it's hopefully going to be in 2 different locations. I'm not sure we can fly people in from all over the US to the same location. So let's see how we can expand this as well.
I'm curious, tell me a little more about the user conferences, because I see where the value is just in terms of you creating community, getting users together to talk about it. You get a lot of feedback right on your product and think of how do we keep developing and making this useful to the people that we have. Is that really common in the Nordics? Some people do it here, but I do feel like more companies should invest in user conferences in this sector, just because again, it's all about the people and getting in front of them and also getting users together. So yeah, tell me about the user conference a little more.
Of course, it's an investment financially for you, so that might actually hold some people off for doing it.
I'm sure it does.
But you can say having the possibility, obviously, to stand on stage alone. You're not in an exhibition venue or at a conference. You have the audience for yourself. That's, of course, a very tailored messaging that you can do there. But I think the true value lies in the networking between your sessions where you interact with your clients. But when the peers, they actually start to discuss, we have certain sessions during our user conference where the peers can discuss internally. And when you pitch into that and can drive the discussion, facilitate ideas, that really is something that you can use as a company who wants to scale, because you get input from clients that are not speaking with each other on a daily basis, or maybe haven't ever had a conversation before, but they face the same problems regardless of where they are based.
Right.
So we can say, ultimately, we would love to also host global user conferences at some point when we are the S3 Autodesk size type company, right? That could be fantastic. But for now, we are happy to do it on a national level, and then also hopefully on a state level coming soon, because we can see so much more value in the way we develop our platform going forward, but also in the users in terms of how they use it, because they all have different use cases and scenarios that they develop on our platform. And we just tap right into that with first-hand knowledge.
That makes sense. And I mentioned it previously, I think you all came out with a new product this past year.
Yeah, we call it the IXI. It's
the IXI. Is it IXI?
IXI, playing with the X and
not
X as well. No, and the 2 I's is for inflow and infiltration. We see that being a massive challenge in the wastewater and obviously stormwater industry.
Big time.
It's something where we felt, well, we have all data available. We have the platform created to actually go out and identify where should you invest in pipeline refurbishment here to take care of that inflow and infiltration problem. And so it was an easy launch for us, and something where we see we cater basically to all markets in the world. But it's a huge problem in the US. It's a huge problem in Germany. And that makes good sense for us to launch a product that is fully localized for both markets at the same time.
That makes sense. And so going into 2026 and onward, what's next for you all? What markets are you looking at globally? Maybe Asia, South America, or are you just doubling down on Germany and the US? Are there other products you have that you're developing? Maybe another funding round? What does the next couple of years look like for APX10?
This is all about scale, you can say. We are doubling down on Germany and the US. We just onboarded more sales resources last week in Germany. Next week, we're going to onboard more sales resources in the US. So that's, you can say, the heavy markets for us going forward, of course. We are launching more partnerships with engineering firms as well, because they are great partners for us. They work with utilities globally, of course. And the platform is tailored towards services that the engineering firms are also providing. So that makes good sense for us to go in that direction as well. And then you can say the world is basically open in terms of having a SaaS platform that is fully globalized. But I would say having that rifle shot approach and very focused view on the market entry and how demanding that is, still having a lean team to support it, it's important for us not to shoot at everything that moves, basically. So we are extremely happy.
Yourselves.
We're very happy with the two markets chosen in terms of the growth that we have, and also how we see the markets growing going forward, because it is the two biggest markets when we look at the segments that we want to serve, those small and mid-sized utilities.
Exciting.
So we have a lot on our hands over the next couple of years for sure, and are very intrigued by, you can say, how technology and obviously utilities as a general is moving forward. We see so many new, young, very talented people coming in, disrupting things that we also hope are going to be users of the Apex platform.
Is that right? What are you seeing?
I definitely see that there is this generational change out there, and it's accelerating. Of course, it's tough to find candidates in utilities, and also if it's communities driving it. So one way we see them attracting people is also becoming more digital, and that actually plays to our advantage, of course, but also is helping those utilities and communities leapfrog how they approach things. And they can also interact and engage with those engineering firms out there at a higher level when they have the insights themselves. And we see that hugely beneficial to the communities, that they are digital and not just stuck in old school solutions or in a position where they just do what they are used to be doing.
Sure. Yeah, we are seeing, an upending of sort of how things have been done in a new way in a lot of ways. And so it doesn't surprise me that you are seeing that in your work as well.
We are kind of in this inflection point in the marketplace, we can see. So for us, it's well timed, as we would say.
Yeah, and timing's everything.
Timing, a great idea. If you're a bit clever and then have some luck, then it'll work out.
That's right. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time and telling me the story of APX10, and I'll definitely see you at WEFTech and and some other events, and keep following you guys on LinkedIn. It's exciting stuff.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Andrew.
It seems that digitizing utilities is the future for a number of reasons. It makes jobs more relevant to young people's skills, and it also tackles the huge cliff of talents that utilities face. To keep these utilities going in the next couple of decades, they'll have to depend on automation, which is fed by the data that we collect. And so tools like APX10 are going to be critical for that transition to be successful. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the end. My name is Andrew Dugan, and this is The Meter.